Hey, what's up? This is Patrick. Welcome to episode 16 of the Double ETF podcast, Everything Except the Football. I hope you guys are doing great. Today, I talk with Kevin Hartbarger, originally from North Carolina, but now living in Illinois. This was a fun conversation. We covered tons of topics, plenty about traveling, plenty about sports, plenty about advertising, and some laughs, of course. Cannot forget those. This is the longest episode yet, but don't let that discourage you. It's a good one. And as always, if you want to reach us, you can drop us a line on Twitter at EETFpod or EETFpodcast@gmail.com. Drop us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or if you want to contribute financially, that would be amazing. You can do so at paypal.me/EETFpod. So that's it for now. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Kevin Hartbarger. Thanks. All right. With me today, I have the pleasure of welcoming on this show, Kevin Hartbarger. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Patrick. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Long day, but I survived. So that's
good.
That's a good start.
I'm glad you survived. It's good to see you.
Yes, thanks. Likewise. So we know each other from the Name That Tune weekly quiz, but why? I know that this is really open-ended and probably frustrating as a question, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So where to start? So I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up in the southern part of the U.S., although I haven't lived there in close to 25 years. So my folks still live there. I still think of myself as, native, as a native of there, but it's been a long time since I actually lived there. I have bounced around to New York and Boston, and then I've been living in the Chicago area now for the past 11 years. Basically, after our kids were born, we relocated here and are more or less settled. So I think this is where we'll be for the long haul. I work in advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't make the ads, but I decide where the ads are going to run. So I'm the guy who the client gives all the money to go out and spend with, the various TV networks and digital websites, et cetera. I've been doing that for well over 20 years. It's been a interesting career, to say the least. It's changed.
I can imagine
quite a bit from when I started. There are no more 3 martini lunches, unfortunately. Although now that we work from home, I guess no one would know.
Yeah, there could be. It's up to you.
Right. Other than that, I'm obviously a big music fan. That's ultimately how we ended up meeting. Mm-hmm. Big music fan. Have always been big music fan. Worked as a DJ at my college radio station while I was there, and then spent a few years, working in the record retail business right out of school until realizing that was not really a good, long-term career path. And since then, I've just been a music fan, trying to, scratch that itch while it's 9 to 5 working in the ad biz.
And your job, isn't it like the same job that Billy Crystal had in City Slickers, I think? He was selling airtime on radio stations, for radio stations or something?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I haven't seen that movie in so long. I guess if you know Mad Men.
Yes.
I'm Harry Crane.
Harry Crane. I've watched that series. It's one of my favorites. But Harry Crane, wasn't it Rich Sommer?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, the guy with the thick glasses, he started the TV department. That's more or less what he started there is what my part of the ad business is now.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, if we can track back to your origin stories.
Sure.
You said you were born in South Carolina?
North Carolina. North Carolina. Yes.
Which city?
I grew up in Raleigh.
Oh, okay. That's where the Hurricanes play.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Awesome. I went to the first ever official Carolina Hurricanes game.
Oh, nice. Okay. And so you stayed in Raleigh until age
27, 27, 28, so late 20s.
Okay, so that means you went to university in Raleigh as well.
I went to school in North Carolina, but not in Raleigh. So my college was in the mountains of North Carolina, about a 4 hours drive from Raleigh.
Which college was it?
Appalachian State.
Okay, and I don't know the name of their team. What is it?
They're the Mountaineers.
Like West Virginia.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So we are most well known for beating Michigan in football in 2007 when we were still a lower Division I team, and Michigan was nationally ranked, and it was they were expected to compete for the national championship, and then we went and beat them at Michigan. And
wow.
the joke I've always had is that was also the year my daughter was born. I got more phone calls and texts from friends when we beat Michigan than I did when she was born.
Okay. Nice. And Appalachian State, the name rings a bell now. Isn't there a top level athlete who went there? Or is it my brain playing tricks on me?
Maybe. I mean, there's been a few. I would say, like over the past 10 years, we've kind of become a bigger football school, and there's a handful of guys, and I don't know if I can name any off the top of my head, but there's a handful of guys that have gone on to the NFL. It's always sort of random. I'll be watching an NFL game, and they'll be talking about some guy, and then they'll flash his college up, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay,
nice.
That's cool. It seems to happen more and more often. Certainly, when I was in college, I don't know that there was anybody from our school that played in the NFL.
And did you play any college sports or?
I didn't know. I'm not. I was never much of an athlete, so I sort of.
You would rather watch.
Yeah.
For same. Same. I love sports, but I suck at them. You mentioned also living in Boston and New York.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Always for work.
Yes. Well, I sort of, I kind of ran off to New York as someone in his late 20s who wanted to get outside of the town he grew up in and, go to the big city and, get into advertising and do all that. So that was, by design, as a lot of people do at that point. And then a few years after I moved to New York, I met someone who I'm now married to, and it was actually her job that took us to Boston.
Oh, okay.
So we spent a few years in Boston. We got married in Boston, so we still have some connection to it. But after a couple of years, we went back to New York.
Oh, okay. So may I ask what is her line of work?
She's in advertising.
Oh, okay. All right. Small world.
She's actually not anymore, but at the time we met, she was working in a marketing role, and we just had some common. We didn't actually meet directly in the business, but we had some common friends who set us up on a blind date.
Oh, okay. But were you working in rival businesses?
No, I was working at an ad agency, so doing what I still do now. And at the time, she was working in the marketing department at Time Magazine. So okay. I was kind of a client.
Yeah.
So technically, even though when we first started dating, I paid for a lot of the meals, she could have paid and then expensed them. I don't know why we never thought of that.
Whoops. Okay, so there was New York, Boston. How long did you stay in New York?
I was in New York for, I guess, about 10 years altogether. 2 years in Boston, so kind of 12 years in the upper northeast of the U.S.
Okay, and work brought you as well in the Chicago area?
So yes and no. So we have 2 kids, and my son, who's the younger of the two, just turned 11. So when I say we've lived here for 11 years, we moved here when he was like 2 months old. When we knew we were going to have another kid, we still lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn and knew that this was the time that we needed to make the move to the suburbs. And I'm not originally from New York, neither is my wife. So we're looking at houses and things in the suburbs around New York and New Jersey or Westchester, places like that, and just weren't really finding anything that was really affordable, to be honest, and or that we liked. And I was coming to Chicago for work, so the account I worked on at the time, I had a client that was based here in Chicago, so I came out here one time for a day for meetings, and I came out early and was sort of walking around the city, and I called my wife and said, "What about here? Why don't we move here?" Because if you've been to Chicago, I assume yes.
Nope.
Oh my gosh. Okay. No. Well, we'll fix that when this whole when we're allowed to travel again. Right. But it's very it's very clean for a large city. I think that's the thing that struck me was, having lived in New York, and there's obviously a certain energy there, but you get to a certain age and you either you're okay continuing to put up with the sort of noise and grime and all of that, or you're ready for something different. And there's just, Chicago is still a really big city. You still have access to all the cultural aspects of a big city, and obviously major sports teams and great restaurants and all of that. But it's more grounded. I think it's cleaner. The sidewalks are wider. You don't feel as jammed in as you do in New York. Okay. And then we do live in the suburbs here, but you can live in the suburbs and not feel like you're an hour away from downtown Chicago if you're still, commuting into the city for work. So it's just, there's an accessibility and an affordability to Chicago that I think, a lot of people don't necessarily know. And so we kind of just took a leap of faith, and we both talked to the companies we worked for at the time and said, would you guys be okay if we relocated, and they both found, new roles for us within the company that were based here, and moved out here and bought a house and with a yard and all of that. And nice. So our kids have grown up here, and we settled in, and it's been, it paid off.
Yeah. And so 10 years in New York, living in New York, that concept fascinates me. You were living in Brooklyn the entire time?
No, I lived all over. It's another aspect, I feel like, of New York in your 20s is you move a lot.
Okay.
So when I first moved out there, I lived by myself at an apartment in Queens. Uh-huh. Then moved to Brooklyn for a bit. Then we went to Boston. When we came back, we lived in Manhattan for a few years, and then we actually bought. Oh yes, and then we bought an apartment in Brooklyn. Wow, also expensive. Yeah. I shudder to think what that apartment would be worth now if we had actually been able to hang on to it.
Yeah. What year are we talking about?
So this is all happening in like 2005, 2006.
Okay.
Yep. When we bought our place.
Okay.
And then, moved out here in 2010. So yeah, kind of lived all over New York, all over the city. And yeah, it's not easy, and it's not for everyone, but that's for sure.
Yeah. I've visited New York like 5 or 6 times, but I loved it every time. But I imagine, as you said, that living there takes a lot out of you. It's like a slow grind in a way.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of access you have to a lot of things because you live there, because it's a big city, and there's just tons of things going on at all hours of the night. And when you're younger and single, and those kinds of things are great. Yeah. Being able to stay out at a bar till the sun comes up, or something like that. But you get to a certain point where I think it sort of bifurcates. There are people who they're in for the long haul. It brings them a certain energy to, get jammed into a subway car and, see garbage piled up on the streets. I don't know. I feel like for them, it adds character, I guess. For other people, I think, they're like, okay, this was fun while it lasted, but I'm ready to get out and do something different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're due for something new, something easier on your nerves, probably.
Yes, absolutely.
But it makes sense, though. I suppose that for advertising, New York is the place to be, pretty much.
Yeah, it's still really it still really is. I mean, it's the epicenter of advertising, really globally.
Hmm.
I mean, all the major ad agencies still have their primary headquarters in New York. There's a handful that are based here in Chicago,
Okay.
and almost every major company has an office here in Chicago. Increasingly, Asia's expanding market, and so the Singapore is also a hot spot. Certainly London, but still New York. Everybody still gravitates to New York, and I feel like everyone that has a long-term career in advertising has done a stint for at least some amount of time in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you wish you knew before moving to New York, now that you know it?
uh,
This is a deep question for a Wednesday
yeah,
night, right?
man, that's good. What do I wish I knew? I guess,
We are taping this on a Wednesday night, by the way, just so you guys
yeah.
don't start wondering what the hell is he talking about.
Right. That's a great question. What I wish I knew. Wow. I guess I wish I knew how. I wish I known actually how easy things are. It seemed it. I've made it sound like it's just it is a grind. I don't want
Uh-huh.
to take away from that, but I think there is actually. I would say for anyone out there listening who's thinking about doing it, it's actually easier than you think. I think that's something that would have been good to know going in is that you very easily figure out where the subway goes, and you easily figure out, the street system and where, what an address means and how to get to that
Mm,
place. And you very quickly figure out, like, you kind of meet the people in your neighborhood that run the local grocery store or, liquor store or
yes, of course.
the local diner and all that. And like it's very much a collection of smaller neighborhoods that make up this massive city. I mean, I think a lot of cities are like that, but definitely I think New York feels very intimidating when you look at it from the outside. But I think it's actually easier. It's easier than a lot of people think. So I think it would have been good to know that and feel sort of less intimidated going in.
Well, I mean, Raleigh isn't, it's not a small town, you know?
It's not, although when I grew up, it was. I
Oh,
mean, it's
really?
exploded.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, over the last 25 years. I mean, really around the time that I moved away is when the population really exploded. And
What kind of numbers?
when I was growing up, I'd say like the population of the city itself was probably less than 100,000 people.
Okay.
Now the metro area is definitely more than a million. I wouldn't even want to
Oh,
guess, but I do still get back there, and it blows my mind like how much there is there now and how spread out it is. And I go back and I still drive on the same roads that I'm used to driving on. Yet they've built all these new highways that probably get you to places faster, but I don't know how those work. I just use,
yeah.
I go the way I remember driving when I was growing up. So yeah, it's definitely a change.
Mm.
It's definitely was different going from one to the other.
And overall, did you enjoy your time in Boston?
Yeah, we did. Boston's interesting. I mean, it's a beautiful city.
Hmm.
It's obviously, from a historical aspect, amazing. It's also, New England itself is a really nice part of the U.S. and
That's true.
having access to Maine and New Hampshire and places like that was really nice. I think what's interesting about Boston, though, that this is a question: what did I wish I knew about Boston before I
Yes.
went?
Yeah, please.
Is that it's very provincial.
Okay.
And what I mean is, if you're not from there, you're an outsider.
Okay.
If you didn't grow up there or you didn't go to school there, if you move there in your late 30s, you will make friends. People will be nice to you. It's not as though you're treated as an outcast, but you're never really one of them.
Huh.
And that's fine. I mean, it's interesting. It's just sort of an interesting aspect of the city. So it's not as though we ever felt like we shouldn't be there, but we definitely felt like we're not going to be here forever.
You never really felt at home, quote unquote.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we enjoyed a lot of aspects of it, and as I said, we got married there, so that's still very much a part of our life. But you just never really felt like you were on stable ground.
Yeah.
When you were there. So it's interesting. Very, really small town in that way.
And your wife, is she from that area?
No, she's from Pittsburgh, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we sort of somehow managed to, come from Pittsburgh and Raleigh and meet in New York. And so we've covered sort of the eastern sector of the U.S. at this point.
a lot of big cities in there. I was gonna ask. I don't remember who said that. I think it was Bill Burr actually who said Boston is like a racist San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to commit to that statement.
Yeah.
But something to think about, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. No, that's somewhat accurate. That is somewhat accurate.
I've been to Boston only once, and I mean it's a gorgeous. You're right, it's a gorgeous city. Honestly, I mean living there, I'm not sure. Sports rivalries are a big thing, Montreal, Boston. That's not. There's no love lost there. Okay, so you've never lived in the western part of the U.S.
No,
you don't intend to either.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I do like. I love California, love, both the San Francisco area and LA as well. We try to travel out there on, a fairly regular basis. I'd say, I feel like I go there almost once a year. I mean, obviously I haven't been there in a while.
Yes.
But we've talked about maybe that's where we'll end up after the kids go to school. We could move west. Certainly, go somewhere that has a little better weather. I'd say there's not many parts of, I'm not super well traveled in the US, but I feel like I've been to, all four corners.
Yeah.
I haven't really been anywhere that I was particularly, that I wasn't fond of. So,
okay.
I mean, I love California, and it's helpful to have friends out there as well. So when you go out, you don't have to feel like you have to get around and see all the sights, right? You can actually just spend time visiting with people you know.
That's true. All right. If you don't mind, if we can just switch gears a little bit and talk about sports a little bit.
Sure.
What would be your top 3 sports? I assume you're a sports guy because you mentioned going to play hockey a few times during that tune.
So it's interesting. I don't play.
Okay.
I'm not the hockey player. It's my son.
I thought you did.
Yeah, no, I've been on ice skates maybe once in my life.
Okay.
I'm a hockey dad. Which is, that's still a commitment too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I'd say that, all right, well, growing up in North Carolina, college basketball is, practically a religion. So,
but even though the big teams were rivals, quote unquote, did you cheer against them or?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So if you grow up in Raleigh, NC State is in Raleigh.
Okay.
And then UNC is in Chapel Hill, which is, 20 miles down the road. And then Duke is in Durham, which is 20 miles in, the other way.
Yes.
So you've got these 3, major, and when I was a kid, they were winning they all won championships.
Yes.
So it's huge there, but you're definitely, when you're a kid, you're pinned down as to which one are you going to root for.
Okay.
So it's sort of before you even think about where you might go to college, you're kind of pinned down on, do you root for State? Do you root for Carolina? Do you root for Duke? So it's like a decision you're kind of, you're forced to make very early. And then there's a lot of people who end up might go to one of the other schools and sometimes change their allegiance, but sometimes don't because
Yeah.
it's been with them since birth. Appalachian's not a big basketball school, so I didn't really have to. There's never really a time that they're necessarily competing with those big three schools, so I never had
Okay.
to. I never really had to make that choice.
And you never tried, or you never cared enough, or
Cared enough about
making a choice?
Oh no, I made the choice when I was a kid, for sure.
Okay.
I'm saying I didn't have to revisit my choice
Okay.
based on where I went to college. No, so I threw in with Duke
Okay.
at an early age. So I was kind of at the time that was the weird choice. That was like the outlier. Everyone else picked the other two schools, and
Really?
so I went a different direction. Yep.
Okay.
It's sort of now, I'm over 50, Patrick. So when I was a kid, I started following Duke basketball before Mike Krzyzewski coached there. That's how far back I go.
Who was the coach before Coach K?
His name was Bill Foster. He was the coach right before they hired Krzyzewski. And when they hired him, everyone's like, who? No one had ever heard of this guy. It's a weird last name. It was such a weird thing when it happened. And then obviously, he turned into the greatest coach of all time.
I haven't followed college basketball in a long time, but didn't he coach at Army before Duke?
That's right. Yep.
Oh, 10 points for me. Woo!
Yeah, well done.
Thanks. But okay, I got to say, a quick sidetrack again. This is horribly rude, but may I ask how old you are?
I turned 52 this year.
Oh, wow. Okay. I had no idea. I would have guessed a lot lower, honestly.
No. Well, thanks.
So. Okay, so Duke, wow, that's wild because, I went to college from 92 to 95, and even then, Duke were a powerhouse already.
Yeah. So, luckily I made a good choice,
Yes.
although all the schools have, done well. NC State, not as much. But I made the choice and it's paid off over the years, obviously, because they're typically very, very good. So that's definitely my number one sport. And then I would say I probably would have said in the past NFL football. And I think that's probably still there, but I do find I watch it less and less these days. I'm not sure why. I think it's probably just a function of, when I was younger, having a free few hours on a Sunday afternoon was easy to come by. A lot harder to do now when got a family and you're driving somebody back and forth to an ice rink a lot of the time. So, but I do still, it's definitely still my favorite. And then the third would be, it's funny. So I'm not an athlete, but I do play golf.
Okay.
And some people would argue golfers are not athletes, and that's fine. I won't litigate that here. But I'd say between golf and hockey, those are probably my others. So like golf I do watch golf, but obviously I play. And then hockey, although hockey's sort of come recently, within the last 10 years, certainly moving to Chicago right when the Blackhawks were winning helped.
Good timing.
And then, and then having son pick up the game makes you a fan as well. So that's probably it.
And did the Carolina Panthers, did they become your favorite NFL team? When you were an NFL fan?
No, my sports fandom is all over the place. So I'm a Green Bay Packers fan.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you how. I didn't grow up anywhere near Wisconsin, and now I live in Chicago, which is obviously the big rival. So
Bears country.
Yeah.
Well, they suck though. So
exactly. I can sort of, I can hold that over people's heads.
Yes.
And Green Bay is only about a 3.5 hour drive from here.
Okay.
So I have been up and gone to games there. So yeah, when the Panthers came along, and I think this happened with a lot of people, they'd already been rooting for a team. So I think a lot of their fans came from people who were younger that hadn't necessarily, started to root for another team already.
True. But if we can go back to hockey, this is interesting because now I'm curious, how did your son pick up the sport if you didn't push him into it? How did that happen?
So it's there's a couple things. One is so he's we moved here in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
In 2010, the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup.
Yes, they did.
So immediately, now he was obviously too young at that point, but they also won. They won two more.
Yeah, they won in 2013 and 2015.
2015.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So hockey has always been big in Illinois. It's a big youth hockey state.
Okay.
So it's a strong, every town has its own hockey league, and it's already kind of big. And then when the Blackhawks started winning, interest spiked up. So it was one of those things where I think when he was maybe 4, we signed him up for ice skating lessons just because it seemed like everybody around here skated. And so whether he actually ended up playing hockey or not, we thought, this would just be good if he knew how to skate because he'll probably have friends who skate. And so he'll just be able to do that. Yeah. One of the things that the town I live in does, the local hockey league, every year hosts a learn to play hockey night where the local high school team will be at the rink and they're, wearing their gear. And then little kids just show up and they get to go on the ice and skate around with the high school kids and see what they think. And so I took him, say, yeah, hey, would you want to try this? Sure. We'll go try it. And it's just funny to think about now because he went and he wore figure skates that we rented from the rink. Okay. And then you had to wear a helmet. So he wore his bike helmet. Okay. I mean, a lot of kids did, but it's just, you had to have some kind of helmet on, and he loved it. I still have videos of him. It's funny because a lot of kids wanted to line up and shoot on the goal. Mm-hmm. He went off to the side and was passing back and forth with one of the high school kids and just was getting the biggest kick out of that. And I think they finally had to coax him over to the line to shoot a goal. Fast forward, he's a defenseman and he's never scored. Okay. And it was foreshadowing that, he's going to be a defender and a passer, but not a scorer. And he just, he went and he liked it. So even though I never pushed it, and he wanted to do it. And so we did, the sort of house league for a while, and he still liked it. And we started doing travel, and, now he's now we're, we're full on traveled, going all over. We've played in Canada.
Oh, okay.
2 years ago, did a trip to Sarnia in Ontario and played in a tournament there. And it's the OHL, right?
Yes.
As a team in Sarnia. So they had
the Sting.
Right. So they had a game. They had a game while we were there. So all the kids got to go on the ice at halftime and skate around with their warm-ups on. And so, yeah, that was fun. We've gotten to do a lot of fun things because of it.
I'm going to be a real asshole here and tell you it's not halftime in hockey. It's intermission.
Oh, geez. I can't believe I know that too, Patrick. I can't believe I just said that.
That's okay. I couldn't help myself. Sorry.
Okay. It was intermission between first and second period.
Yes.
That was, you know what? I deserve that. I deserve it.
I mean, I'm just giving you
as many hockey games as I've seen. I can't believe I just did that.
But so that's pretty cool that he still likes it.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think the older he gets, the tougher it gets, obviously. I mean, he's a year away from checking, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that was my next question.
No checking yet, but he's a year away from it.
Does he have the size?
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll be fine. And what I've told him is that, he's a defender, so he's going to be hitting more than getting hit.
Defenseman.
I know. Okay.
I'm just giving you shit.
No, that's fine. I'm digging this hole deeper. Let's see what else. When he score, hopefully when he scores his first home run on the ice by shooting it into the bucket,
and then the extra point.
That's right. Oh yeah, he's definitely going to go for the extra point.
Hopefully, he doesn't get a yellow card.
That is the only way he ever shows up on the stat sheet is, 2 for tripping.
Nice. For our listeners who are not into sports, sorry, that was a lot of sports talk, but if we can rewind a little bit and go back to North Carolina.
Sure.
What did you major in college?
I majored in broadcast communications.
Okay.
So I studied a lot of, radio and television production and copywriting and just basically everything related to radio and TV broadcasting.
Did you have a clear goal as to what you wanted to do afterwards?
At the time, I did want to go work in radio. I thought what I wanted to do was end up being an announcer, a DJ, whatever, at a radio station. Start off in small market, work my way up, end up in New York or Chicago someday. And then, some of the people I knew who were older, who graduated before me, did that. And a year in, they all said, this isn't really that great. And I think also it hadn't happened yet, but certainly what's happened with satellite radio and companies like Clear Channel who've bought up tons of radio stations and basically gotten rid of a lot of live announcers and go to just pre-recorded. It become kind of clear that there was going to be an elite level of people that kind of made it and were able to turn it into a long-term career. And I just I wasn't up for doing that anymore. And honestly, by the time I graduated, I enjoyed the work, but it was not as interesting to me as it was when I first started college. I think that happens to a lot of people. They kind of start out, they major in something, and by the time they graduate, they're like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do.
Yeah. You decided a little young what you want to major in anyway. So, there's plenty of time for you to change your mind.
Right.
And for the industry to change as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it is like, I can't imagine. I don't know if people actually, I mean, I guess people still major in broadcast communications, but I don't know that people aspire to work in radio the way they used to. I can't imagine they do.
That's true. And I mean, you went from potentially an industry who went under radical changes to another industry that went under radical changes as well. So there was no way of avoiding it.
No, there wasn't.
So what would you say is the one change that turned the advertising sector on its head in the past, let's say, 10 years?
I don't know that there's one event necessarily. I will say the biggest change, though, has been the advent of data as part of, and I mean digital data, being part of sort of part of the mix. So, for years and years and years, advertising was very much based. There was certainly data and analysis you would do and understand your audience and look at research and things like that. But
demographics and all that.
Absolutely. But there was still a lot of, like, we would always say that advertising is this sort of perfect marriage of art and science.
Okay.
And there was still a lot of, and there still is a lot of art in advertising. Not just in actually the creative, creating the ad, but even in art in how you make decisions on where to place ads and the sort of sponsorships you might create with a media company and things along those lines. But I think the advent of digital data has commoditized a lot of what we do. And it's taken a lot of the art out of the decision making and made it much more analytical and scientific. And for some advertisers, that's been beneficial. And it's sort of changed into, when I got hired in advertising, the fact that I had maybe more of a creative brain was a benefit. Now I think, is that left brain? That's left brain, right?
I think so.
Right.
But now I'm not sure.
Well, okay. Let's assume it is. Yes. Now they want more right brain people. Okay. Because now it's actually, they want people that understand how to analyze data and pull out insight from that. And, I can still do that, but I'm not a data scientist. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really been that. It's created a lot of different ways of buying media, so it's less about, it used to be very relationship driven. you'd get to know your local television rep really well, and you'd sit down and maybe you go to lunch and you get to know each other, and then you negotiate a deal, and you'd still do the right thing, right? It's not like a under the table kind of thing. It's become a lot more transactional. So it's less relationship driven and more transactional. And it's more about, we're going to put this ad in the market, and then we're going to analyze it very quickly, and then we're going to stop it if it's not working right away, rather than letting something kind of, run and grow and figure out. So that's been the biggest thing. It's just been the sort of, actually, I'd say the catalyst for that, now that I think about it, was the iPhone.
Okay.
That was the turning point, when all of a sudden everyone had a computer in their pocket that had an incredible amount of data about them and their behavior and their shopping. Like, everything you do is contained in this little thing that you carry around in your pocket now. That accelerated the availability of data and accelerated this change in the business. So that was probably the linchpin.
Okay. And would you say, with your personality, would you say that your job is easier now than it was?
No. Oh, no. It's
probably more complicated, right?
It's much more complicated. There's a lot more. You used to be able to make gut decisions. You can't really do that anymore. There's too many things. It's the cliche is analysis paralysis, right?
Yes.
There's almost too much. And so it makes you question sometimes, I've made this decision. Oh, I've just seen this other piece of data. Okay, maybe I need to rethink this. And so now you spend twice as much time coming to the same conclusion. So it's definitely made it more complicated.
And I guess also that advertising strategies, they are probably a lot shorter now.
Yes.
You have to, go with the wind all the time, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, brands used to have much more long-term strategy, a way to build an audience, to build a brand, build this relationship with their customers. Now it's very much like, let's get this done. Let's have people click on this, have people buy this. Let's do this, right? And if they don't, let's do something else, and let's do it quickly. Yeah, it's different. It's changed quite a bit.
What would you say? I mean, I hope you don't mind that we talk about your line of work, because it fascinates me.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
What do you think is the one thing about your job that A, people don't know, and B, you wish people knew?
I'd say the one thing that people maybe don't know is that you have to be really good at math.
Okay.
I think I didn't know that when I started. I think, you watch Mad Men and, you think people just sort of come, but you have to, the amount of time I actually spend making spreadsheets is pretty high. And so
you don't have people do that for you. You do it yourself.
Well, it's a combination. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, you start out and you learn how to do all of it, and then you kind of keep doing it because you just have a comfort level sometimes with the way you do things. But I think that's something people don't necessarily know, is that you do have to be really good at math. So even though I think it used to be about finding left brain people, you still need to have left brain people that were good at math.
Okay.
I guess the thing I wish people knew is that, I guess, that we know a lot about you. We know more about not necessarily you, Patrick, but we know a lot more about people than maybe they realize we do. And I think people understand that more maybe than they used to, because there's been a lot of legislation and regulation about data privacy and things like that. But and none of this is done in a nefarious way. Mm-hmm. It's just, people use computers and that tracks data, and we anonymize it. So we don't know who you are, but we can group you with other people that behave the same way you do about certain things. And then we can make a decision to target that segment of people. But we know a lot about people. So,
but okay. So now everything is anonymous, like you mentioned, but did you, I don't want to pick nits or anything like that, but did you ever have any quote unquote ethical conflicts because of that at any point? Or were you ever asked to go a step too far, or when it came to privacy or anything like that? Or it just doesn't not apply, but it's just not possible with the data you have?
Well, I think it just doesn't. I don't want to speak for the industry, but just from my experience, it really doesn't happen because we would be cutting our own throats if we did that.
Okay.
I think we, as an industry, I will say we behave responsibly when it comes to how we use that stuff. And I'd say like one example would be, for healthcare, we do not know about conditions people have. That's something that we don't want to know. It doesn't get tracked. There's no way for us to know that. So, that's something you stay away from. But yeah, I think in general, we know that like our survival as an industry and then also the media companies that we do business with understand that their survival as an entity and having people use their website or watch their TV channel or whatever is dependent on having trust, or having a certain level of reliability and trust from consumers. So yeah, no, nothing, luckily, nothing like that's ever come up. And there's not really a corner you could cut anyway that I think is going to make a difference.
Okay. But yeah, and then there is, and that's another conversation, not for Wednesday night, but another whole conversation about the ethics of advertising.
Yeah.
But that's okay. All right. So yeah. Okay. So we can close that parentheses if that's okay
Sure.
with you.
Yeah.
We can switch gears and talk about music a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. First, can you play musical instruments?
No.
Do you know that you don't have the talent for it, or never had a chance to explore it, or?
I took piano lessons for a short amount of time when I was younger. We had a piano in the house for years, but I never really played. Lessons didn't last long. There are times when I think, like over the past year would have been a good time to learn how to play guitar or something like that.
That's true.
I guess I just never, I like listening to it, but I've never really had a part of me that said, I want to also be a part of it.
Just like sports.
Yeah, kind of.
Pretty much. Are your parents or your brothers and sisters, do they have a talent for music, or?
My dad plays guitar. So, I definitely, that's like the funniest thing is like, I grew up in a house with someone who played guitar, and yet I never said, can I try? So yeah, just for whatever reason, never filtered down to me. I love music, love lots of different kinds of music, listen to so many different things. And it just has never been something that I felt like, I want to learn how to play and see if I can make my own.
Do you have any brother or sisters?
I have a younger sister who doesn't play either. No.
Okay. All right. Okay, then what would be your top 3 bands?
So I would, I think about it this way. I had my first love, who were the Beatles, as is true with a lot of people. They were the first band that I really connected with and just devoured everything, they ever did. And still to this day, just incredibly influential, to me personally. Then I'd say, the kind of cool girlfriend you get in high school or college, that was REM.
Okay.
They, I think with REM, I sort of saw how, first off, they're from the South. So there's definitely, that connective tissue of someone who grew up in the South and hearing this band that very much in their early years, especially traded on a lot of the culture and mythology of the South. And, but also just had just this quality about them that it felt like they were taking something to like this new place, and they opened up a lot of a lot of different things for me to listen to. You could call it sort of early alternative in a way, but it sort of opened this door to, I might check out The Cure, or I might check out,
Yeah.
Jesus and Mary Chain, or, it just sort of opened these doors.
Hmm.
But then ultimately I found my soulmate, and that's Elvis Costello.
Okay.
So my, far and away, my favorite musician. Seen him in concert more than anyone else. There is a literature to his music that really connects with me.
Hmm.
I love lyrics. I post a lyric every day on Twitter.
Yeah.
And he just, the way he writes, it blows me away still. And he's still vital. And there's something about him that I just have this deep connection with. So those are the three.
Nice. This is this is a new question, and this is not part of the list.
Okay.
What was the first song that blew your mind?
I would say probably "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away" by the Beatles. I started listening to the Beatles, and obviously the hits and everything you knew, and then I think I came to that song on Help, and I think I came to that song in the album, and there's it's sort of this acoustic, and it's very confessional in a way that was very different from the sort of "I Want to Hold Your Hand" kind of thing, and it's again that was sort of like that opened the door, because then you'd read and you'd say, oh, he was very influenced by Bob Dylan when he wrote that, and then you say, oh, well, Bob Dylan, yeah, I'm going to check that out, and so all of a sudden that opened up this whole talk about lyrics. But yeah, I think that's probably the first time I heard a song, and this would have been when I was 9 or 10 years old, where I was like, oh my God, you can do that. It's not just okay, we've got guitars and a drum, and we make this. It's like, wow, he's like saying something. This is really cool.
Nice. Just another quick sidetrack. My next question was travel? Question mark?
Yeah.
So, travel?
Do I
Yes.
travel?
Yes.
I wish I was more well traveled. It's not something I ever really did growing up, but just wasn't. We would visit grandparents who lived less than a 5-hour drive. So it's definitely something I took to when I got older. I have not traveled many places. I've been to London and Paris and Barcelona, and we've taken our kids overseas once, and that was a great experience. And then the one I've been to Canada several times. Quebec City was incredible.
Ah, nice. Glad to hear that.
Someone said to me the other day, they're like, I heard it's like going to Europe, but it's a shorter flight. And I'm like, it's very, very close. I mean, you definitely hear more French there, I think, than you would
Yes.
hear in Montreal. And we went in the winter, and it was just,
Nice.
the snow and everything, and the hotel, and just the scenery by the river was incredible. And then the place I've been to multiple times, and if I could go once a year, I would, is Ireland.
I've never been.
Oh my gosh. It is, again, it's like, I have family from there, as everyone in the US says, but I do have, family a few generations back from there, and I know where they came from. And so I've been back to that town, but there's an energy that for me, when I go there, that I have never felt anywhere else.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a place for me. When I step off the plane, I immediately feel like I belong here. Like I am completely comfortable in my skin here. I've driven there on the other side of the road.
Yes.
For me, it's just it's amazing. So I actually, when I turned 50 2 years ago, the big trip I did to celebrate was I did a long trip to Ireland with some buddies to play golf. And that was an absolute dream trip for me that I'm still amazed we pulled off. And it was just incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess you landed in Dublin, probably?
No, flew into Shannon.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And then did you like go around the country and or you focused on one region or?
We spent most of the trip in the Southwest, so counties Kerry and Cork.
Okay.
But then we did eventually make our way up to all the way up to Donegal, which is at the very top of the island, just outside of Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went into Northern Ireland for a day because we were actually there the week of the Open Championship.
Nice.
When it was hosted in Northern Ireland for the first time in like 60 years. So we had tickets and went, which is amazing.
Jesus.
And then worked our way back to Dublin and departed from Dublin. So we did about 3/4 circumference of the island while we were there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you go to isn't there a part of the island who speaks mostly Gaelic?
Yeah, there's parts. So Donegal is, it's definitely highly spoken up there.
Okay.
There's parts of the sort of some of the outer reaches of Kerry is still very heavy Irish speakers. Every sign in the country is bilingual.
In the entire country?
In the entire country, because
okay, I didn't know that.
It's officially bilingual.
Okay.
So every street sign, you see the name of the town in English, and then you also see the name of the town in Irish. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
And then all, the speed limit, everything is bilingual. But yes, they're still, I mean, it's decreased quite a bit, but there are still a few pockets where, yeah, they don't really speak English.
That has to be quite something. Yep, I've never been. It's on my list, but yep.
Highly recommended.
I might ask you for a few addresses if I go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I might go with you. That's how much.
Okay. What was your favorite part of of Ireland?
It's definitely, just so Kerry, County Kerry, which is in the southwest of Ireland, has two peninsulas that sort of jut out into the Atlantic. And on one of them, the Dingle Peninsula, if you go all the way out to the very end, you're sort of the easternmost part of Europe, I think. Although I guess technically Iceland would be farther east. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it just depends on the longitudinal lines. And
do you mean west? You said east.
Oh yeah. I guess it's the closest to the East Coast. That's what I had in my mind.
Okay.
So yes, the farthest west. Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. So there's the Dingle Peninsula, and then there's the Ring of Kerry, which is the peninsula just below it.
Okay.
And both of them, if you drive out onto them, first off, the roads get very narrow. So if you're driving, you got to be very careful because a big truck could come around the corner. Okay. And then there's, fields and sheep as far as the eye can see. But there's definitely, it's mountainous, and, there's cliffs that go straight into the sea, and just the scenery is mind blowing. Wow. It's something to see. I mean, you'll hear a lot of people talk about driving the Ring of Kerry.
Okay.
And one of the golf courses we played was out that way. And it was just stunning. You stepped onto this golf course and you're just like, how can I be on the same planet as other, places I've traveled? Because it's just like, I think about it and I still just, I get chills thinking about how beautiful it was. So yeah, definitely that area of Ireland to me is it's beautiful.
All right. Okay.
You've never seen green the way you see it there. Like, you don't know the color green until you go to Ireland.
Okay. Noted. I'll keep that in mind for sure. I'm glad I asked that question, actually. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So if we can switch back to music, if that's okay. I could ask a few questions about sports, if you don't mind, if you're good on time. Okay, I can ask. Doesn't cost anything. What would be your favorite sports movie?
Oh gosh. See, I told myself I wasn't going to think about any of these questions in advance because I wanted to be fresh. It's a silly. It's probably Caddyshack.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
I mean, it's not an Oscar winner, but when you play golf, it's quotable. I mean, it's like
Yes.
it's 4 hours on a golf course, and there are going to be several Caddyshack quotes that come out during the round. So it's Caddyshack.
That makes perfect sense. What about books? What would be your favorite sports book? Could be a biography, could be whatever.
There's a book called Loose Balls.
Okay.
That's about the ABA, the American Basketball Association.
Yeah. Okay.
It's sort of an oral history. And they talked to just about everyone that was involved with the ABA. So, Julius Erving played in the ABA, and Bob Costas got his start announcing for an ABA team. It's fascinating because for about 10 years, I think it was around, it was this very freewheeling, barnstorming kind of environment where the NBA was sort of the old stodgy establishment. The ABA came along, and ultimately 4 of the teams were absorbed into the NBA.
Yes.
But it's interesting too because it happened in this the kind of early to mid 70s when there was also in parallel a lot of racial justice going on and civil rights, and the ABA was much more black than the NBA, and the game that they were promoting was much like slam dunks and fast breaks, and it was NBA back then was still very set plays and motion and blah 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 and all this, and so the ABA really sort of made basketball, I think, a lot more just a faster paced, better sport. And so it's fascinating reading this because none of the teams were ever super financially successful, and teams moved, and guys were getting paychecks folded. Yeah. The best story, though, you may have heard this, but the most successful franchise was called the Kentucky Colonels.
Okay.
And they won a lot of championships. And when the time came to merge with the NBA, they were not one of the teams that merged. Instead, they opted to get a percentage of the NBA's television revenue in perpetuity.
Okay.
So, 45 years later, the owners of that team, and you think about how big the NBA has gotten over that time and what their television, the contracts that they get from, TNT and ESPN and everyone, they continue to make a fortune. So it's basically like they get I don't even know what the percentage, it doesn't matter, but they still get, for doing nothing, for folding their team, they still get a check every year from the NBA that's just increased over time. I'm sure they've tried to do something about that over the years, but that's fascinating. So Loose Balls.
That's amazing. And do you remember the author?
I don't, but I feel like it's someone has written several sports books.
I could look it up.
Yeah, I was just thinking I should do the same.
But I didn't know about that story. It's amazing.
Terry Pluto is his name.
Terry Pluto, yes. And just to refresh my memory, which teams merged with the NBA? The 76ers, I think?
No.
Okay, sorry.
The Nets.
Oh, okay.
The Nets, the Pacers, the Spurs, and the Nuggets.
Okay. All right.
10 points for me.
Yes, absolutely. Well deserved. Well done. Awesome. Because you mentioned Julius Erving. He didn't always play for the Sixers, right?
No, he played for the Nets.
Oh, okay. That's why. Okay, that's why.
And he played for a few other teams, but he sort of became a superstar playing for the Nets.
Oh, okay, got it.
And then actually, when they merged, he was traded to the 76ers. So he never played for the Nets
in the NBA
after they joined the NBA.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so we can switch back to music now. Then same question, but with music. What is your favorite music movie?
I think it's The Kids Are All Right, the Who documentary. That came out in 1979, I think. It was right after Keith Moon died.
Hmm.
Yeah, I watched that a lot growing up, and it's the Who's not in the top three, but they're certainly in the top 10 bands for me. But that documentary is just, it's not a narrative story.
Hmm.
It's just a lot of different, footage, and it kind of bounces back and forth, from late period to early period and back. And, but somehow it still tells the story of the Who, and it's just, it's great. So that's the one.
Okay. And can you think of one music movie that you absolutely hated?
One that comes to mind, and I hesitate to say this, but so I'm not a big Rush fan. I'm not a Rush hater.
Okay.
I do. They can be polarizing, but I'm not. I think I've listened to them a bit more recently because I've kind of gone back and I'm sort of. But I watched the what is it? Is it the On the Lighted Stage?
Beyond the Lighted Stage.
Beyond the Lighted
Yes.
Stage. I was just sort of disappointed. I wanted to learn more, and I don't think I learned as much as I wanted to. And I think I almost I want to say it's because they were very involved in it. I'd actually be interested in an unauthorized Rush documentary.
No, yeah, I get what you mean, and I mean I liked it, but I agree with you that there were definitely some aspects that they could have dig deeper.
Yeah,
for sure. For example, what really happened with the first drummer?
Yeah,
like they stayed kind of vague about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had diabetes, I think, maybe health trouble, but we don't know for sure if it's the real reason.
Right.
And there is a point during the movie that Neil Peart went to see some kind of, God, I cannot think of his name, but like some kind of a drumming guru.
Right.
To like reinvent himself, his style or something. And that segment, I guess it was important to Neil Peart, but as a viewer, I didn't really get that much out of that part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah.
So I mean, I'd say I learned some things, and it was interesting, but I think I was just hoping for, like when I sat down, I was thinking to myself, this would be a good opportunity for me to pivot and think a little differently about this band, and it didn't help. So I didn't hate it. I just was disappointed.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's understandable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about books? What is your favorite book related to music?
Oh, you know the answer to this, Patrick. I mean, it's sort of a running joke on the Name That Tune game,
yes.
But it is my favorite. So it's the Billboard Book of #1 hits.
Yes.
It's been updated, numerous times over the years, and basically it's a book made up of, it tells the story of every song that's ever hit #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100, and it's one page per song. So it's like a very short snippet story, but I've just always been fascinated about all of the stars that have to align for a song to make it to #1. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because it's, you have people like the Beatles who hit #1 multiple times. And so like, it's clear that that's a thing that's going to happen.
Yes.
And then you have these other bands, these one-hit wonders. And it's kind of fascinating how they caught lightning in a bottle on this 1 week or multiple weeks. So yeah, I know it's a running, but I love that book. I've read it many times, and obviously it comes in handy whenever you're playing a music trivia game.
But it gets bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah, they actually haven't updated. I don't know if the author maybe has gotten too old to update it, or if the songs that hit #1 these days maybe aren't as interesting. That could just be the old guy talking, Yeah. But it's been, I have the latest edition, and it only runs through like 2005.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's obviously due for an update. It's been a while, so I think maybe it's just, that's it. They're not going to make any more.
Run its course,
Yeah,
sort of. All right. Okay, so next question. What was your first concert?
Kiss.
All right.
My when I was 10 years old, it was actually my 10th birthday present. My mom took me to see Kiss.
Jesus.
My mom is awesome.
So that was in Raleigh, I guess.
It was in Greensboro, which is about an hour or so west of Raleigh.
I guess you remember it really well, probably.
My memory can be really bad for things that happened that long ago. There's aspects of it I remember, and then now that you can go online and look up old set lists,
Mm-hmm.
I've done that, and I'm like, oh, okay, yes, I remember, and then that was a song where Gene blew the fire, and that was the song where I don't know, maybe Ace flew out into the audience. I don't remember for sure, but yes, I do. I still remember aspects of it. So yeah, that was a very cool mom moment.
Yeah, true, true. Question 4. What is your favorite or most memorable concert?
One of the times I saw Elvis Costello, it was at the Beacon Theater in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing with the Imposters. So this was in like 2002, 3, something like that. It's when the When I Was Cruel album was out, and his PA went out.
Okay.
And there was no sound. And so while they were fixing the PA, he walked out to the front of the stage and he sang "The Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes" a cappella. The audience was dead silent.
Wow.
Except for like there's a few points in that song where there's sort of a call and response.
Mm-hmm.
There was like no sound. He would sing the line and we would respond, and then we would stop. He sang the entire song, like perfect pitch, everything about it, while they're in the back, fixing the PA. I mean, the show itself was good, but that moment just still sticks with me as like, I cannot believe this is happening right now.
That's crazy.
It was amazing.
How big is that venue?
The Beacon's, less than 2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. Really
Nice.
cool. Really cool.
Question 5. What was the scariest concert crowd or mosh pit or whatever you've ever been caught in?
The scariest crowd was by far the Grateful Dead.
Okay.
Back when I was in high school, Bob Dylan and Tom Petty and the Hartbargers went on tour together. And they would play, Tom Petty would open, then Bob Dylan would play, and then they would play together.
Okay.
And then during that summer, there was a string of dates where they played in football stadiums, where then the Grateful Dead would play after all of that. So it was like a day long. And I am not a Deadhead. Like that was the only time I ever saw them in concert. But to see the change, even though it was like the same people obviously are in the stadium, the change that happened when the Dylan and Petty part stopped and the Grateful Dead part started was, and they're not scary people, but they're just like the smell, we stayed for maybe half an hour and at that point, I think the Dead had only played one song. But we were just like, this crowd makes me feel weird. I'm not into this music. Like, let's go. Let's get out of here. And I've never seen the Dead ever again.
All right. Okay, so then the other end of the spectrum, is there a band that turned you into a fan after you saw them live?
Yeah. So this is Elvis Costello related. So I also saw him one time in New York as part of it was a festival. It was called the Guinness Fleadh, which is, I think Fleadh is Irish for festival.
Oh, okay.
And Elvis was a headliner, and then there were some smaller bands on the bill. And then playing right before him was Hootie and the Blowfish.
Okay.
And I still wouldn't listen to a to an album by them. I mean, obviously, we all listened to the one when it first came out, but they were so good live. You could tell they were a band that like played. You know, when coming up, that they were playing bars throughout the South and had really honed they were a great live band. And even though they played, you know, the worn out songs from that album, they brought like an energy to it that I was not expecting. So, I mean, I would say like I never acted on that. I never saw them again, but I might actually still go see them because I just felt like they came out and put on a show, and I was blown away.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's not an answer I would have expected, to be honest.
No, I certainly didn't expect it to happen.
Pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, so question 7. What's your most memorable or favorite brush with fame? It doesn't have to be music related.
This is easy. I met Christian Leitner.
Oh, nice. Duke alumni.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a picture of me with him where I look like, I got everything I ever wanted for Christmas or something. Like this big goofy smile on my face. And I talked to him for all of 5 minutes. But yeah, that's
friendly guy.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's so I met him I went to South by Southwest in Austin.
Okay.
One year, and it's when they did a documentary called "I Hate Christian Leitner."
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So it's when that was being broadcast. So he was actually at South by Southwest promoting it. So he sort of had to be nice.
Oh yeah,
but
true.
I think he would have been nice regardless. I'd like to think so.
Did you see that movie?
Yep, I did.
I remember enjoying it.
Yeah, it was really well done. I mean, you know, they were a very good team, and I can understand how people that were not fans would not have liked not just him, but there was plenty of other guys on the team that I could see as unlikable. I, however, loved all of them.
Yeah, no, that's I get that. Mm-hmm. I get that completely. Okay, so question 8. What piece of music memorabilia would you like in your house?
I would like to have the Spectacular Spinning Songbook, which is something that Elvis Costello has taken on tour. He basically has a big wheel,
mm-hmm.
Like a wheel of fortune.
Okay. Not the tricycle thing. The big wheel.
No. Right. No. So he's got this big wheel that's mounted on the stage.
Okay.
And it has, the little the little post and then like the clicker. And so you spin the wheel and it lands on a song.
Okay.
And then he plays the song.
Oh, nice.
And so it's this massive, I would say, I don't know where I'd put it. I want to say it's 20 feet tall.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
20 feet wide, 20 feet tall. But I'd love to have that.
Wow. And is there every song that he ever played on that wheel, or just the hits, or just?
It's a mix. It's not every song, but it's,
okay. I hope
it's
not.
sort of, yeah, I think it's a mix of, hits and, might be tracks from his current album, but then he'll put some surprises on there on the off chance that it actually comes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So that was the regular questions, quote unquote.
All right.
Are you ready for the quick and quirky questions?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Okay, question 1. Would you rather speak all languages or play all musical instruments?
I'd rather speak all languages.
Yep.
I'm sort of, again, I haven't traveled a ton, but enough to be exposed to different languages. And I'm sort of blown away by the fact that there are different languages. I mean, the line of your work you're in, you're probably like, yes, I know that's how it works. And, but it's fascinating to me that, these culture, evolved over time and it created a different way of saying the same thing, like many different ways of saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated by it. So I definitely, when I'm in Paris, I want to look at the menu in French and see if I can make my way through it. I usually can't, but I definitely would. I would rather speak all languages.
Yep, I get that completely. But just a quick aside on the continent, what is your favorite city on the European continent?
It's Paris.
Okay, good answer. uh, I'll tell you one thing that fascinates me with languages is for example, there is a spot near Aachen in Germany that you have the border of Netherlands, Belgium, Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany at the same spot on on a marker, a stone marker,
Yeah.
and thinking of borders and languages, that's what fascinates me, because like you can draw a line in the sand and on your left they speak Polish and on your right they speak German, and they are separated by 100 feet.
Right.
It's crazy when you think about it.
I mean, it's just even just in our countries, the same language, you can go from state to state or province to province and hear a completely different version of English or French.
Yeah.
I still remember being on the flight from Montreal to Quebec City and seeing these like big burly like lumberjack guys speaking this like really like rough version of French.
Yes.
And like you could hear him talking like that sounds like French, but that doesn't sound like French I've ever heard before.
Yeah, no,
it's fascinating.
All right. Okay, so question 2. If you could get a ticket to any show or event, music or sports, what would you want a ticket to? Past or present or future, whatever.
And does this not depend on whether it would ever actually happen?
It could be hypothetical. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I would like to have a ticket to see the U.S. play in the World Cup final.
Good shout. Yes.
I mean, I'll never get it and it'll never happen. But I've said to myself for years, if that ever happened, I would do whatever I needed to get a ticket to that.
They will get to the tournament at some point for sure. But the final game, that would take...
I can't see it.
Maybe not in our lifetime.
Yeah, I'll leave something in my will to my descendants so that they can do it.
But no, I mean, just a regular game in the tournament would be amazing.
Yeah.
So the next one is in Qatar. I don't know if you would want to go there.
I think I'll pass. It is coming here in.
Oh yeah, isn't it like 2030? Like the 3 countries, like a few games in Canada, a few games in Mexico, and most of them in the US?
I think so. I know that Chicago is not one of the cities that's being played in.
Okay.
For whatever reason. But that's fine. Yeah, I mean that when it does, just to go to a one game would be pretty cool.
Would be awesome.
But so that's, if they make it, hold me to it. I'm going to go.
All right. Well, maybe I don't know if they qualified for the Euros, Ireland, but maybe next time Ireland qualify for the Euros, it could be a plan B.
Maybe.
I'll knock on wood.
Yeah.
For that. All right. So question 3, what is your favorite insect?
It's probably the bee. I think, I feel like somebody talked about this before, but
yes.
But I knowing what we know about them and how they contribute to our environment, I'm all for them. So, and I'm not allergic and they don't bother me. So I'll say the bee. Good for them for doing whatever it is they do to keep us going.
Yep. Good shout. Question 4, what scene from a movie scarred you for life?
So I have a severe phobia of snakes.
Okay.
Like even a still photo is like, will
creep you out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yet one of my favorite films is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I watch it sort of, looking through my. Luckily, I've seen the movie enough to be able to kind of look away or just
Yes.
look out of the corner of my eye, and I know what's happening. But there's even parts of the scene, and I won't say them because I don't want to trigger anyone that might have the same phobia. But there are pieces of that scene that are even like, yeah. So
I think I have one shot in mind. Do you want me to say it, or should we just move on?
let's just move on.
Okay, but I'll ask: is there any reason why snakes? Or
I don't know. I've asked my mother, like, was there something happen when I was a kid that I don't remember? And yeah, I don't know. I just think there's, I just something I developed, and
I mean, it's not weird at all because I don't like them either.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't blame you.
I'm sure I mean, I know people keep them as pets and feel like they're completely normal things, but for me, yeah.
No, yeah, no, I don't get that either. Like a snake as a pet. What's wrong with a dog or a cat?
Yeah,
You know,
I don't get it.
are those people that desperate to be different?
Maybe.
Maybe. That's another topic entirely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so question 5. What is the best nickname you've ever heard?
All right. So I still have a big group of friends back in Raleigh, and we all sort of have nicknames. And there's one guy he's a very big guy, weighs well over 300 pounds. And when we first met him, we called him Big Mike, which is like a terrible nickname. Right? Somehow,
especially if his name is not Mike.
Right. It's a good point. Over time, his name it migrated a bit, and we now call him Grande.
Oh,
right, which
classier.
Feels a little classier.
Mm-hmm.
He has a younger brother who's even bigger than he is.
Okay.
And when we first met him, he moved to North Carolina, a few years after we first became friends with Grande. We started calling him Grande Light.
Nice.
As though he was like the light version of Grande, when in fact he was actually a bit bigger. So we call him Light. So that's his nickname, is Light. So he's,
okay.
He probably weighs like 330.
Jesus.
Big guy. Both these guys are like, they're big, but they're not like they're former athlete big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
strong men.
Big, strong. Right. Exactly.
Big.
Just big,
okay.
Big, but like put the weight on after they stopped playing sports, but still. But yeah, I laughed at, like, the biggest guy of our group, we call him Light.
And may I ask what your nickname is?
Oh boy. Mine's pretty easy because for the past 25 years, we've all played in a fantasy football league together, and I'm in charge. So I'm Commish.
Ah, nice. Okay. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was expecting like something like really weird or, not raunchy, but you know what I mean? Like
yeah, I know it's almost too logical.
Yeah, Commish is almost too respectful.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, almost.
But don't complain about it. They might change it and call you something much worse. They
might. Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty ingrained now, so I think it would be hard to change at this point. But yeah, you're right. It could have been worse.
All right. Okay, so question 6: what would you name your boat if you had one?
Let's see. Traditionally, they're named after women, right?
Yes. But don't let that stop you.
Yeah. I don't know. Gosh, I'd call it, I don't know. Maybe I'd call it the hole in one.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Why not?
Yeah. It's the closest I'll ever get.
Okay, yeah, good point. Okay. I don't know your golfing skills, but that's a good shout.
Okay.
What's your handicap?
Well, my handicap is, my driver, my irons, and my putting.
Okay.
No, I play to about a 15, so I'm not I'm not winning the club championships anytime soon.
Okay. Okay, so question 7. Where is the worst smelling place you've been to?
My mother's mother, my grandmother, lived in West Virginia, and so we would drive there often to visit her. And on the way to her house, in one of the towns, there was a paper mill.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever driven by a paper mill?
Yeah, my city used to be the Canadian capital of paper mills.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I know that smell. It's
Yeah.
horrendous.
Yes. So that is, you talk about Proustian. I mean, that is like
Yes.
that smell. I smell it right now. Just mention it. But that's luckily it was always just driving through.
Mm,
So we never stopped. Thank God.
only for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all the paper mills have closed since, but yeah, I got a Vietnam War style flashback
Right.
when you mentioned that. So yeah, oh gee, yeah,
Yeah.
fuck, that smelled
Mm-hmm.
so bad. Okay, question 8. When did you screw everything up, but no one ever found out it was you?
I'm not I'm no saint, but I really can't think of an instance. I can't think of an instance. I mean, the closest thing I could think of is that, I when I was a senior in high school, there was a weekend that my parents went out of town and I threw a party. It's such a cliche. They they did find out, and luckily, I feel like I can't remember the details, but I do feel like there was something was broken or stolen that they never found out about. So
Ooh.
I feel like that's the closest. Like they knew I threw a party and I was punished because of it, but I feel like they came back and to them the house looked intact and nothing was missing. But I do think there was, and so now they know. They listen. That's something I just don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, that's the closest thing I can think of.
Right. Okay. Question 9. What is the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
This week.
Or recently?
Yeah.
Maybe today.
Oh gosh. Wow, I'm struggling. I should read more interesting things. I will admit I didn't fully read the articles, so I don't want to quote too much of it, but I briefly saw that there's something in the US, there's something like 5 states are responsible for something like 50% of the vaccinations that have happened so far in the US.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so I will say, like, I haven't gotten it yet. Illinois has been very regimented in how they've kind of slowly opened up to more and more of the population. And,
Do they go with age groups or types of work or?
Started with age groups, then has gone to type of work and then, underlying medical conditions. And, so far I haven't qualified for anything. Now, next week, it's going to be opened up to basically everyone over 16. So,
okay.
But then I see, friends on social media posting, who are my age or younger and live in other states. I'm like, I just don't understand how it works. And then when I saw this today that, that 5 states have driven, something like 50% of overall vaccinations. I mean, first of all, yes, there are some states that are much more populous than others. So certainly, if you vaccinated half of California and half of, Wyoming,
yeah,
that's the delta in that is significant.
Yeah.
But it also says to me, like, unfortunately, we just haven't had a national strategy for rolling this out. I mean, we have more so now than we did 6 months ago, but
yes.
The fact that, like, it's still this unequal kind of distribution. But that blew me away that there was such a small subset of the country that's actually driven most of what's happened so far.
Yeah, same thing here. It's been going really slow here, and I think right now in Quebec, I think 20% of the population is vaccinated. But I saw that on Twitter today. The 5 states that border Quebec, the 5 U.S. states, they all have almost double the numbers as we do.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. And I see on Twitter people, younger than me with their 2 shots already.
Yep.
I know we are not going anywhere anyway. And I have a very safe job. I stay here all day working from home.
Yeah.
But it's still frustrating,
Yeah, I just think we're all sort of busting to get out.
Yes.
to feel safe going, getting out and seeing people again.
Yeah, for sure.
I sort of do. I do a bit of it. I will say one benefit last year of being a golfer is that it's a sport that's played outside and it's easy to distance.
Yeah, that's true.
So I felt like I still had something to do to keep my mind and body active last year, but then you couldn't do the other things that are fun about it, like have beers afterwards with the guys and that sort of thing. So I'm eager to, I think it'll start to ramp up a lot more quickly over the next several weeks, at least down here, hopefully for you guys as well. But yeah, I think it'll be a shame if we get to the fall and we haven't gotten to a little more sense of normalcy.
Yeah, and hopefully, I don't want to turn this into COVID talk, but it's, we better hurry because we don't want the variants mutating into something that the vaccine cannot fight.
Right.
And then we would be in big trouble again. And then what?
I can't. That's
yeah. You can only do so much for so long before losing your mind.
Absolutely.
Basically. Yeah. Okay. So moving on. Question 10. If you were given a 1-minute ad slot during the Super Bowl that you couldn't sell, you have to use it. What would you fill it with?
It's a funny question for me, Patrick, because I've actually done that.
Yes.
I have bought an ad in the Super Bowl. It wasn't my message. It was obviously my client's message, but I've actually done it. If I bought it, I would run, just to stay political for a moment. I would run some sort of gun safety message or fundraiser message for gun safety advocacy groups or something like that. That's sort of the one thing that I, feel most strongly about as it relates to politics in the U.S. And it's a big audience, and unfortunately, it's a bizarre conversation in this country, and not to go down that road, but I think I would use that platform to talk more about that.
Is it a big problem in Illinois?
There are parts of Chicago where it definitely is. I do think that, I think Chicago becomes a shorthand sometimes for the argument that, well, look what happens in Chicago. Although if you looked at it on a per capita basis, it's much safer in Chicago than it is in a lot of other cities. And I live in the suburbs, which is like, you could probably leave your house unlocked here and it's not, it's safe. So it's not I'd say it's not a big issue here. Our issue in Illinois, as happens with a lot of states, is that Indiana, which is right next to us, has very lax gun regulations. So if you people that run into a roadblock here can just drive down the road and, this sort of patchwork of
stock up.
this patchwork of laws with, state to state, that creates the issue.
If you have strict laws and your neighboring state doesn't, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Okay, so that was the first section. Are you good for overtime?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Awesome. Question 1. You are going back in time and wind up face-to-face with 15-year-old you. You have 10 seconds before you travel back to the present day. What do you tell your younger self?
I'd say dress better.
Okay. You still have 8 seconds left.
I don't know. You see old pictures, and I realize some of it's the fashion of the time, but I also just see pictures, and I'm like, what? Like, what made you think that was? I like to think I'm actually a fairly well dressed person now, and I wasn't for the longest time. So I don't know. I just tell myself to maybe dress a little better.
All right. And everything else is cool. So okay,
everything turned out fine, but it'd be nice to look at some old pictures and not go, what were you wearing?
All right. Okay. Question 2. If you could live in anyone's head, a la being John Malkovich, for 15 minutes, only spectate, you cannot control them, who would you choose? Past or present?
I would choose to live in Berry Gordy's head, the founder of Motown, and be able to hear Marvin Gaye sing for the first time.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
I just trying to imagine what must have gone through his head when he heard that voice. Yeah, I'd love to know what that was like.
Yeah, no, excellent answer. Question 3, you are on death row. Tomorrow it's curtains, but you choose the way you're going, okay? No matter the logistics, you can go big or small, quick or slow, whatever. Whatever your kink. How do you want to go?
Oh, God. I mean, I don't want to.
The answer, old age, has already been taken, so I'm sorry.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing would like something that happens in your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Just fall asleep and you don't wake up. That way you don't even know that it happened, or depending on what happens after that, you may think that you just woke up and then you're in some new reality.
Maybe, yeah.
I have no idea, right? So yeah, I'll say, I don't know if there's some way to, to cause a brain hemorrhage that happens when I sleep, that just sort of.
Well, I mean, there's always something like, I don't know, vodka and Xanax,
Right. That's true.
If you want to, go that way.
Yeah. Whatever it was Keith Moon had.
Oh yeah. Okay. It was John Bonham that, who choked on his own, sorry if that's gross, but who choked on his own vomit.
I think that's right. I think ironically, Keith Moon overdosed on, like pills he was taking to control his alcoholism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Like talk about ironic.
Yeah. And I didn't even know you could overdose on those.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you can if you chase them with vodka.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Good point. All right. Okay. So yeah, you want to go like in your sleep, painless.
Yeah.
Like just drift away. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, so question 4. Your superpower is that you can give phobias to people. What things or concepts or whatever would you make people afraid of?
That's such a good question, because it's like it's so easy to say, what would you take away from, like, what fears would you remove from people?
Yeah.
But what would you actually give people? I think it would be good to give people a fear of, I feel like a lot of people have fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of thinking about this philosophically, but I would almost I would want to really ingrain that in people, so that in the hopes of sort of shifting behavior I feel like that would make people be more empathetic to people who are suffering or things along those lines. Like if people actually, maybe it's I would give them a fear of suffering. Like I feel like there's a lot of selfishness because people sort of have this mentality that, oh, well, that's happening to that person, but it's not happening to me. I mean, we've seen it over the past year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, well, I don't need to wear a mask because I'm not sick, you know? So maybe it's not fear of death, but it's like fear of suffering. You know, it's like, so that people would stop having this mentality that just because someone else is going through something, that means you wouldn't, you know. And it's like, if that would be a way to inspire more empathy, then if I can't give them the gift of empathy, I'll give them the fear of suffering and I'll beat the empathy into them. Right?
Yeah. Or maybe give them the fear of lacking empathy.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, right. Another, yeah, I was very vindictive. I'm going to give them a fear of suffering, but you're right. Like, yeah, I just, you know, it sort of makes me, I just wish, you know, I wish people understood more that other people go through things and that has an impact on, you know, how they behave and, you know, why they do things a certain way. And it's sort of the adage of you never know what someone, that small amount of time that you have to talk with someone, you don't know what else is going on in their life. So like, be kind in that moment that you are interacting with somebody. And it's like, if I could inspire that through a fear of, you know, like suffering through the same thing, then so be it. But just something that hopefully just inspires people to be kinder.
But fear of death wouldn't be a bad answer either, because maybe that's a big maybe, but maybe that might force people to live their life to the fullest and not focus on so much meaningless stuff. But that's very optimistic.
No, I mean, it's a great point too. I mean, it's something I think about it a lot, and it's, you know, particularly like in work, sometimes you're sort of struggling with doing a certain project, or, you know, I've got to write this email, or I'm super focused and worried about this impact. And then you take a step back for a second and you say, if I don't do this exactly right, what does that really matter in the grand scheme of things? Like, yes, it's my career. I get paid to do this. But if I'm 99% right, that 1% is not worth the angst that I'm giving myself over it. Because am I going to look back 20 years from now and say, boy, if I had just, you know, written a different sentence there, you know, that would have made a difference, you know? So, yeah.
There is this, I read that somewhere, there is kind of a question that you should ask yourself a lot if you get stuck in that mindset that you just mentioned. Would it matter in 5 minutes? Would it matter in 5 days? Would it matter in 5 years?
Yeah.
Or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
That's a good compass to guide your decisions. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we've used those questions in this family quite a bit.
Okay.
You know, especially, you know, when we're making a, you know, like maybe it's a family decision, or it could just be making a, you know, where are we going to travel on our next vacation? It's like, well, if we did this or we did this, you know, it's like, do you spend the extra money and fly to Europe? Because in 5 years from now, are you going to look back and say, I can't believe we did that, or I'm so glad we did that, you know? And it's almost always the second thing, right?
I can't believe we did that, or I can't believe we did not do that.
Right.
You know, it can go either
Absolutely.
way.
Absolutely.
So there you go. All right. So question 5, would you rather win, let's say $2 million, tax-free, no questions asked, or let's say enough so that you can retire right away, or wake up tomorrow 10 years younger?
I think,
but not go back in time. Like, you know, wake up tomorrow in 2021.
So I'm still at this point in time, but I'm 10 years younger.
But you're just physically 10 years younger. So you would live 10 years more. Unless you get in an accident or something. But you know what I mean. You know, right. Physically 10 years younger.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. I might go younger. I might go 10 years younger. And I think the biggest reason is because I was a little older when we had kids, I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know, it's all relative, but I have friends who are my age who now have kids that have finished college. My kids are still in elementary and middle school. So I like the idea that I would get that 10 extra years with them.
Hmm.
When I start to extrapolate the time out of, oh, when my daughter's this age, that means I'm going to be this age. And it's like, I'd love to pull 10 years back from that and know that I had some more time with them.
Yeah. Yeah, good shout. And also, there will always be money,
Yeah.
but time, you get only so much of it.
No, father time is undefeated.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. So, question 6. What is the best compliment you've ever received?
I mean, it's when someone says, you have a great kid.
Hmm.
I mean, the best compliment I think a parent can get is someone saying that you have a good kid. It's whatever it is. Your kid's really kind. Your kid played well on the ice. Your kid was so good in that play. Whatever it is. I think just as a parent, you sort of do what you can to prepare these people to make their own way in the world, and you can't do it all, but you hope you set them on the right path. And so, yeah, to me, the best compliment I can possibly get is when someone says something good about one of my kids.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You can do it all, but you can only do your best,
Right.
and you try.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
important thing.
Yep.
Question 7. What is your hometown best known for?
Probably basketball. I think. I think. I mean, maybe not as much now, but certainly when I was growing up, I mean, NC State is in my hometown, and
Hmm.
so that's what they're definitely known for. I mean, I think, yeah. Some people think about that part of North Carolina. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Okay, yeah, that works. Oh yeah, this is a new question, and shout out to John Motford.
Okay.
I got that question from him. Think zombie movies. Do you like your zombies fast or slow?
I do recall seeing this discussion on Twitter.
There you go.
Um, I've I think I'll say slow. I think
Hmm.
it's that's the classic.
That's true.
That's classic zombie behavior. I'm gonna stay old school and say zombies should be slow.
All right.
They're slow in Shaun of the Dead, right? They're the slow. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and that's probably my favorite zombie movie. So yeah, we'll say slow.
Good shout. I mean, I think, and I mentioned that on Twitter, when I think fast fast zombies, the one that comes to mind, and I think it's the best one, is 28 Days Later.
Yep.
And I cannot think. Well, I mean, I think there was a Korean movie, Train to Busan. I don't remember if they were fast or slow, but it was a fun movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I feel like 28 Days Later might have been the start of the fast zombie.
I think, wasn't there Return of the Living Dead in the early 90s? I think those zombies were fast,
Yeah, I feel
but
like
I'm
that
not
was
sure.
that was more of a comedy,
Yes.
right? Wasn't that? It was like a
Yes.
parody of zombie movies.
Yeah, comedy horror.
I vaguely remember seeing it. Yeah.
1985.
Okay. Yeah.
Dan O'Bannon, director, who also wrote Total Recall, I think, with Arnold,
Oh wow.
I think. Or did he write Alien as well? Anyway.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
And we have people screaming at their phone right now. Yes, he did. No, he did not.
Right.
You idiot. All right. Okay. So next question. Name me 3 items on your bucket list. That's a new question as well, I think.
Okay. Well, I'd like to go to Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to Asia, and that's sort of number one on my list. I would, I mean, I would like to play Augusta National.
Okay.
I don't know that I'll ever be able to make that happen, but I would like to do that. So I'll put it on my list and we'll see.
Maybe a duffel bag full of cash would solve the problem, maybe.
And then, I mean, this will be easy, but, and it's still travel related, but like my kids haven't been to Ireland yet. So I would put that on there because there's a part of me, I do want to take them, but there's also a part of me that is a little worried that they won't feel the same way about it.
Yeah, I get that.
There'll be this, it's interesting. I think my daughter tends to connect with things similar to me. And then my son tends to be more connected with things my wife likes. So it's funny how that develops. I don't know how it happens, but it just does. So maybe I'll just take her.
You want to play it safe?
Yeah. I can't handle the disappointment.
Well, I mean, either way, knock on wood for Tokyo. That's a great project.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it works out.
Yeah,
when we can travel again. Whenever that is.
When and if.
Yeah. All right. So question 11. If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, language is not an issue, who would it be?
Okay. So Robert Kennedy would be one.
Mm-hmm.
He's a personal hero. And then, I'd say like probably Paul McCartney. I'd sort of like, I put this table together and I'm like, I wouldn't even say a word because I just would be so intimidated. So that has to also not be a barrier, right? the sort of intimidation factor of being around these folks. And then, I don't know, so for the 4th, I'd say maybe, I don't know. It's so hard. I mean, there's so many to choose from. I'm drawing a blank on that. Maybe I'll say Marvin Gaye. I'll just call back to him. Maybe he'd like sing for us after dinner or something.
But okay, so wait. Robert Kennedy, politician.
Mm-hmm.
Paul McCartney, musician. Maybe you would, or you wouldn't care. You would want a person from another field as a fourth.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good. So then I'll say Phil Mickelson.
Okay, yeah, good shout.
Yeah, because he'd probably pick up the tab too.
Yes. Well, I'm pretty sure McCartney would be good for it as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Now that I think about it. All right. Okay, question 12. What is the biggest surprise you've had over the last few months?
Biggest surprise.
Good or bad?
I'd say maybe this wasn't a surprise, but we spent a few weeks in Florida a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And I sort of expected going in that masks would not be in, we would not see as many masks as we would in other places. And, but I was shocked at how much of that was the staff at places, like mm-hmm. people working at grocery stores and coffee shops and restaurants that they weren't wearing masks. Like I sort of expected that the customers, would be against that, but I'm just surprised I was surprised that the businesses weren't concerned about the liability and wouldn't have their folks masked up. So, and we were good about, we'd often be the only people wearing a mask going into certain places. And
wow.
When we did go to a restaurant, we always made sure they had outdoor seating so that we also had,
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I sort of expected, because Florida just seems like it's a little bit of the Wild West.
Yes.
But I was surprised at And yeah, just the fact that the people working in places weren't doing it either.
Hmm. Well, hopefully it doesn't turn into anything bad in the next few weeks.
No, I got tested as soon as I got back, so all
Okay.
good. I'm invincible.
All right. Rock on. Question 13. What keeps you up at night?
Like wondering how things will turn out for my kids. Just hoping that they are able to grow up in a world that works for them.
And yeah, a world that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year for kids. They're not designed to be stuck inside like this, and to not have this sort of contact with their friends, and have sort of school is one day you're in school but you're sitting in a room with a mask, and then the next day you're at home and you're on your iPad, and it's just I worry about the sort of mental strain we're putting on them, and then just I was already worried about the sort of world they're going to grow up in. So it does keep me up at night sometimes. You just want to make sure that they have what they need and that they're ready. And luckily they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But when that time comes, I want to make sure it's all set up well for them.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right. So, last question, 14. What is your fork in the road moment? Your sliding doors moment? The one pivotal moment in your life?
So this is interesting because on our drive to Florida a few weeks ago, we drove through Atlanta, and between North Carolina and New York, I spent a year in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I didn't much enjoy it, so I don't really talk much about it. It was fine. It is what it is. But on my way to work one day, I got in a car accident, and I was fine, but my car was completely totaled.
Okay.
And I remember, like, after that happened, I sort of didn't like living there anyway, and I had really close friends who were in New York. And I remember talking to them and saying, like, this stinks. I'm in a job I don't like. I just lost my car. Like, how am I going to be able to buy another car? And they said, maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is the time you should move. Like, move to New York. You can stay with us while you're looking for your own apartment, blah, 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 all this. And I think about that sometimes. Like, if I hadn't gotten in that accident, would I have eventually made it up there anyway? Or did I need that sort of kick in the pants to shake myself out of doing the easy thing? And I had to be in a situation where, like, I was completely pushed out of my comfort zone. And then that was a catalyst to having me make that move. And then obviously I moved to New York. I met my wife. I started my career. Like, all those things happen. So anyway, we drove right by the spot where that happened a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Because I was like, basically, I said to the family, I'm like, you guys are probably here because of what happened right here. And of course, my kids are like on their phone, like, what are you what? But yeah, that's something I can look back on and go, if that hadn't happened, I kind of wonder how things would have turned out.
Yeah, no, that's good answer. Interesting answer as well.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So that's the questions. We've been going for almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I'm very long-winded, so thanks for.
Oh no, that's thank you for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This was a lot of fun, and I'm glad we did this, and hopefully people stay through to the end, because it is we did go for a while.
I'm not worried. I think we covered a ton of different topics, and I think there should be something for everyone.
I hope so.
Where can we find you online?
The best place to track me down is on Twitter. My handle is at K Hartbarger. So it's HartBarger. It's phonetic. Mm-hmm. So it's super easy. And as I said, I post a song lyric every day. Have been doing that for several years now, and then general nonsense and other silly jokes from time to time. For a while, my Twitter bio said, I might still say it, is my views are completely ridiculous and 100% my own, or something like that.
Yeah, it might still be that. I remember seeing that somewhere, so that might be it. All right. Okay, so thank you very much for listening, everyone, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks.